Josh Stevens.
MZ, Michael Zwerling.
You know what I'm going to ask you next.
Personal question.
No more personal questions from me. But Amy has a personal question for you.
Oh, is that so?
Yeah, that's true. Okay. So that's coming up. But right now we've got Dave Michaels.
Good morning, MZ.
How in the world are you?
I am doing fantastic today. What a beautiful day. Nice and sunny. It's so beautiful. I can't believe it.
You're always such an upper.
Well,
Whenever I ask you how you're doing, you're so positive, even if it's a bleepy day outside.
Right.
You know?
Right.
I want to take a little bit of your attitude. Could you sell it? Maybe it could become part of longevity.
Maybe. But I tell you what, MZ, it'd be pretty darn hard to not feel good if you're outside right now. It's a beautiful day. If you're out there, maybe you want to do some gardening. It's a beautiful day to get out in the garden.
What a great segue this is. You are such a pro, Dave
And get into
Michaels.
some Bloom and Minerals. I went down to the hardware store today and bought some stuff to start some plants because I want to do some planting this season. And so I'm going to use Bloom and Minerals, and we're going to see what's going to happen.
I'm a lemon sort of guy, right? Mm-hmm. I have more lemons this year by a factor of 100 or 1,000.
Oh, I love lemons.
And the only thing that's different is Duffy put Bloom and Minerals on all the lemon trees. Mm-hmm. And it just made them just incredibly productive.
It's incredible stuff. I mean, I hear lots of feedback about it, and we have it in the Dave Cave MZ. We have plenty of canisters. These are 4.5-pound canisters. They're $25 each.
Yeah.
And we also have the bags, which have been selling, believe it or not, selling probably more than the smaller cans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, they are definitely worth it. I mean,
Yeah.
It's like buying 100 cans for,
Yeah, it's $90, I think, is what they are.
Yeah.
And you get 40 pounds versus 4.5-pound canister for 25. But either way, the bag makes a lot of economical sense. If you have a garden of considerable size, get a bag.
Do you think we're going to run out of bags now that we've said that?
I think so. We have 4 left, at least, maybe 5, maybe 6. I don't know. There's an even amount. It's either 2 on each stack or 3 on each stack.
Right.
So it's either 4 or 6. We have a few left, though, out there at the Dave Cave. I'll be out there till 2 o'clock today, just like every Saturday from 10 to 2. And maybe pick up something for your 4-legged friend. They like to get out in the garden, too.
And even so, we don't want to discriminate against those who have been, run over by a car and their 3-legged friends or any. Right.
Right. 3-legged friends, I guess it would work as well.
Or even
MC.
2-legged friends.
Even 2-legged friends.
Or even the kind that have to have a little wagon that was built for them. They deserve Arthrodex too, right? I mean, we better be careful or we're going to be sued. We better watch our ass here.
We don't discriminate. Yes,
right.
If your dog is alive, your dog, as long as your pet is alive, this will work fantastic. If they're dead, MZ, you might sprinkle this on for seasoning. It might work as a seasoning.
I'm going to try that. I'm getting tired of my same old garlic powder and salt and pepper on everything.
Sprinkle it with Arthrodex.
Why not?
It smells good. It smells like beef gelatin. I mean, it actually smells like beef jerky. Dogs love it. Cats love it. It's good stuff. $35 for a canister of this. It's fantastic stuff, MZ. I'll be out at the Dave Cave until 2, just like every Saturday from 10 to 2. And if you can't make it down to the Dave Cave, say you want to pick up coffee or the ASAP drops, because Longevity sells the weight loss drops and all kinds of stuff, but you have to go online. Go to KSCOhealth.com to order that kind of stuff. You can take a look at all the catalogs, all kinds of videos, KSCOhealth.com. If you've been thinking about becoming a distributor, go to KSCOhealth.com. You can sign up there, support the radio station. You get to work with me, MZ, Dr. Wallach, Ben Fuchs, some combination of anyone or maybe all of them, KSCOhealth.com. And if you need help placing an order, give me a call at 218-KSCO.
Well, there you have it.
Easy.
There must be something else.
If you can head down to the Dave Cave, I'm there as well. You know how to get a hold of me, 218-KSCO. I'm here at the Dave Cave, and I would love to see you out there. Today's a great day, MZ, beautiful day. Get started on the garden, Bloom and Minerals.
Very good, very good.
Thank you very much,
Thank
MZ.
you so much. And now, should I play the special fanfare? No, I'll wait for that. Let's just go ahead and put Amy Howe on. Hi, Amy.
Hi.
So you have a personal question for Josh Stevens?
Yes, Josh, I have a question for you. I respect your privacy, so it's not very personal, okay?
Okay.
Actually, I have 2. because you answer one, get one free.
Nice.
The first one is, do you know why the statue of the justice wear the blindfolder?
Ooh, that's a good question. And also, she won't be able to hear me, remember?
Oh, yeah. Here, go ahead. Now say it again, Josh. Now Amy can hear you.
Because our justice system is running blindly, perhaps?
What is the reason?
Yeah, what is the reason? Do you have any? He said perhaps the justice system is running blindly. What do you think?
Yes, I believe
Well-
Yeah, go ahead.
justice system is running blindly because they have to run around with one hand tied behind their back, and they don't want to symbolize that, so they just use a blindfold instead.
Okay.
Okay, so I just give you one more hint on that question. So when you open your eyes, on your own eyes, you see things is a partial or impartially?
I would say impartially.
That was the right answer, right, Amy?
Well, I mean, everybody is partially. You see, you cannot see everything, right? So that's why they make her put the blindfolder on her, because they don't want her to become a partial. They want me impartial.
Oh, I never thought of that. What do you think, Josh Stevens?
Wow, that is revolutionary.
Amy is quite the thinker, and it dovetails nicely into our topic today for the radio show. You know, right, Amy?
Yes.
Was that it? Is there one more, Amy?
No. One more, yeah, because he answered that question partially, so I had to give him another one for free.
Okay, good.
So, Josh, do you know how many countries? Just name one, okay? I don't want you get all the countries. It was same as U.S. have this jury system in the judicial system, jury trial. How many countries you know?
Ooh, I would have to say maybe one country, and my guess out of the ordinary is going to be Spain.
Maybe. But as I know, there's a lot of countries. I think Netherlands in the first list, and then followed by Germany, Singapore, and even Canada have partial. Some kind of case is different, use a jury trial, but it's different from the U.S.
Wow.
So there's a lot of countries.
I did not guess that. I mean, I was thinking Canada, though. I was going to take a stab and say Canada, but given how weird they run politics, it made me shy.
They sure do.
No, because they are colony. U.S. is not, so they use the British system. Most of the Western world use the British system because the British Empire sun never set. That time they get all their judicial system all over the country when they colonized them.
Wow.
But the one country, Argentina, absolutely is the jury system.
Josh, it looks like you're masticating. Are you?
Guilty as charged. But
I do that too, but I try to have the mic off. But you did, yeah, you had your mic off.
yeah, I was being a good cookie.
Okay. So, Amy,
Yeah.
are great personal questions for Josh Stevens, you know.
I agree.
So, and he agrees too. So with that, I think it's time to start the show officially, don't you think?
Yes.
Do you think so?
yeah.
Okay,
Sure,
good. Here
sure.
we go.
Good morning, a brighter day is here. Good morning, may we bring you cheer.
We've got time, we've got tunes, we've got time, tunes, and temperature.
Get up and go, it's today you know on KSCO Radio.
All right, when you send a pile of emails, the same email to a bunch of people at this radio station, you get action. because Lev Citrin, I'm sure I've butchered the name, but he'll set me straight here in a little bit, did just that, and he got me to respond because of his idea for such a great topic today. So stay with us.
Good morning. Now stay right here on KSCO Radio.
Yeah, absolutely. Stay right here on KSCO Radio. I'm just going to call you Lev, okay, for now, until you teach me how to pronounce your last name. Welcome to KSCO, Lev.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Okay, great. So how do you say your last name? Did I
Well,
butcher?
actually, you did a terrific job.
Really?
You did a terrific job, yes. It's the most difficult name in the entire Western Hemisphere, and I was really surprised. You guys do not have a sound TS. It's a Russian name. The Russians have a special letter for it. Americans, as I discovered, even though they can say pizza perfectly well, but they cannot put that ts at the end into the front. And so they say citrin. How do you say that? Oh, my goodness. It's such a difficult name. And then they do it perfectly well.
Well, I had a lot of practice because I like Greek food, and I don't like tzatziki, but I do like tiramisu a lot. Geez, the microphone is drenched now. Is your radio drenched out there, people? You know,
Even my microphone is drenched.
oh God. Anyhow, so Lev, you sent an email. You're really into judicial fraud, and I said, "What in the world is that?" Well, it has to do with judges being totally free and unregulated and unrestrained to basically say and do what they want with their great power, right?
Exactly. It was really, really amazing how the questions that Amy asked were framed as personal questions
Yes.
addressed to Josh. If they were addressed to me, those would have been indeed very personal questions.
Do you
Where
feel
I-
like answering them? Because Amy, who is on also. Amy, speak up whenever you want. If you want to answer those personal questions
So,
that she asked Josh,
Can you repeat again your last name in Russia so I can say it
Well,
correctly?
you don't need to address him by last. It's a hard name. It's admittedly a hard name. Lev is a very, very simple name, and in fact, it's a famous name because Lev Tolstoy. You guys say Leo Tolstoy.
yeah, we do. I didn't know it was Lev.
Yes. No, but the official name is Lev. Any book in Russian by Lev Tolstoy is going to have Lev Tolstoy. So I kind of feel that he was named in anticipation of my arrival into this world. Maybe that's what it is. I do not know. But no, just kidding. But this whole justice thing is indeed very, very personal for me, and I didn't even try to dig into it.
Well, let's start. Give a maybe a 1 minute encapsulation of how you got to be so interested in this subject of judges being so unrestrained in any way.
Yeah, well, yeah. Officially, it's to use the verbiage of Pearson against Ray, it is quote unquote corrupt and malicious. But there is a long trail to that, a long voyage. And it started when I quite simply, tried to publish a book. I wrote a book on the role of religion in violence. It was before 9/11. No one wanted it. So I tried to basically publish it myself. I've polished it up a little bit after 9/11, introduced new subject into it, and I thought it would just fly. I found a literary agent. She went around. She tried 10, 15, then up to 40 publishers, and nobody wants it. So I figured, you know what, we're the land of liberty, So let me just do it myself. It's a capitalist society. I'm going to just start my own company. I'm going to do it. And it turns out that you can't really do it yourself. And you've got, you need help from other people. And one of those people is government. And what government does is it keeps its own catalog. The Library of Congress keeps its own catalog for all upcoming books, where it catalogs them by their subject matter, so that any library or any bookstore that is interested in the subject is going to know, okay, here is a new book, a book coming up. We want to buy it. Let's order it. And it has this additional advantage that the libraries who have to put the book on the right shelf and catalog it don't have to do it individually, so it's a labor-saving thing. The Library of Congress does it for all libraries, and they immediately know they get it, and they know where to put it by simply reading the entry in the catalog library, in the Library of Congress. So it serves as two things. It makes the book visible to the marketplace of ideas, number one. And number two, it makes it very, very easy to order and to place. And so I thought, okay, wonderful. So let me apply to that. I'm about to publish a book. And they say explicitly, they say that books published by their authors are not eligible. I'm like, wait a minute, what do you mean? This is government. Government has to abide by the First Amendment that says that it cannot abridge speech. And of course, speech being a two-way communication between the speaker and the audience, if you abridge the audience, you abridge speech. It just goes without saying. So I go to a lawyer, and he reads it, and he says, those people are crazy. Let's just go and file a lawsuit. And his point essentially is that this is crony capitalism, that the whole reason why the government does it is because, you probably hear about laws written by lobbyists, that lobbyists for big publishers basically said, look, there are amounts of money allocated by the libraries. Why would they go to all and sundry? We want them to go to our companies. We want the libraries to buy what we publish, not what somebody else publishes. And they just got this rule. It says it's got to be to be eligible for our services. The publisher has to have previously published 3 books by totally different authors, and the author cannot be a publisher. So essentially what they try to do is they try to make a book like mine invisible in the marketplace of ideas. Wonderful. We filed the case, and very, very interestingly, the government did not try to argue back. All their argument was, they just basically said, look, the guy knows that he is not eligible. The rule plainly states that he is not eligible. So what's he doing in the court? What is he trying to prove? And so they completely ignored the fact that what we were trying to prove was that the rule was unconstitutional and illegal. And they say, no. They're just applying. They just know that the rule's the rule, so throw it out. And based on that, I already knew, we argued that the rule is unconstitutional, that it's crony capitalism, that it's counter to free speech, and the government does not reply, so I won. Except that I lost, because when the decision came, the judge did all the work for the government. He actually acted as a lawyer for the government. He wrote up the objections to our argument. He came up with all different facts that he thought were facts, with the different case laws, finding this case and that case supporting it. And I read that, and I'm like, wait a minute, where did all this come from? Why is he being their lawyer? A judge is supposed to be, as Amy mentioned, a personification of Lady Justice. He's blindfolded. He has this tray and this scale in his hand. On one tray goes the plaintiff's argument, on the other tray goes defendant's argument. He weighs one against the other. He doesn't put any stuff of his own, and that's it. But turns out that no. Turns out he's not blindfolded at all. He acts as a party to the case that he wants to win, in that instance, government. He did all the work for the government. So I'm like, wait a minute, how's that possible? And my lawyer says, well, you know what? He says something very interesting. He says he can only decide on the money, but he has no jurisdiction over free speech. So let's go to a different court, and let's argue only the free speech, because he couldn't talk about it, even though he talked about it but my lawyer says this is called dicta. He says it's stuff that judges put into their decisions that doesn't belong there because they've got really no right to talk about it. So he says we can't do anything here, but in the other court we can still work because the free speech part has not been decided. And also, incidentally, I just tell him, you know what, let's appeal, let's go to the Supreme Court. So we try to appeal, and as I try to Google the case, I see that the Library of Congress created its own document about the program where it cites our case. And it directly says that they want vetted books. That was the word they said. And my lawyer, she just looks at it, and he says, look, this is crazy. This is a smoking gun. They actually say that they want censorship, because vetted books are censored books. So they just wanted the editors of big publishers to act as censors. So we go to the other court. We say, number one, the previous court didn't have jurisdiction. Number two, there are whole new facts that the government itself disproves everything that the judge invented for the government. And lo and behold, 2 years and 2 months later, a decision comes. There are no hearings, nothing, just the decision comes. And the judge says, you know what, if you would have said that the previous court didn't have First Amendment jurisdiction, and if you would have said that there were new facts, I would have decided for you. But you never said that. So he essentially said that our backbone argument, the backbone of our argument was never really made. So what is this? So let's appeal. We appeal, nothing happens. So I said, look, this is fraud. I'm going to just go and sue the judges. My lawyer says, well, on this you're on your own. I'm not going to sue judges. So I went ahead. I sued judges, and very, very interestingly, what the decision says, or what the argument of district attorneys who defended the judges was that in Pearson against Ray, there is a case called Pearson against Ray, it's case law. Judges gave themselves the right to act from the bench, quote unquote, maliciously and corruptly.
Those are real words.
That is the actual language. That is the actual language of Pearson against Ray.
Maliciously and corruptly.
Maliciously and corruptly. And so, you know, they can act.
You're dead. Sorry.
Yeah.
What, right?
Yeah.
You're dead.
So they can act with impunity.
And so are we. Now we can transfer this discussion. I don't mean to interrupt you, Lev, and I won't. But we can translate this discussion into a discussion of what happened after the last election. Okay, we can do that, but let's do that later. There's a pregnant pause. I didn't mean for that to happen. You were you were on a roll here, and I apologize.
Oh, I was no. It's very, very interesting, kind of in terms, even for me, in terms of my psychology, that I still did not lose the belief in the justice system. And what I did next was to go ahead and further sue to remove images of Lady Justice, because I said she's deceptive. If judges can do anything they want, if they can replace party's argument with bogus argument of judge's own concoction, then why are we being told that justice is blindfolded and that it is impartial? It isn't. In fact, you know, one of those was this corrupt and malicious business, and the other judge said, you know, in his decision that this replacement of argument is the quote-unquote classical application of the judicial function. So I said, you know, if so, why do we have Lady Justice? Let's put on the front of the Supreme Court building, judges have the right to act maliciously and corruptly. Judges have the right to replace. Well, that was actually in that lawsuit.
Yeah, I get it.
So that was in that lawsuit.
It's only right. That should be on the front of all the buildings. You know?
So, and what happened then is, again, was very interesting. The judge immediately, I filed this case, and instantly the judge dismissed it as frivolous. Yeah, that was the word, frivolous. But I thought, look, we have liberty for all. If we do not have justice for all, we have liberty for all. We have free press. So let me go to journalists and tell them that here we have it. 1/3 of American government is officially and proudly corrupt and malicious. Those are federal courts. Those are federal judges, and they say, yeah, we're corrupt and malicious. So why?
Yeah, what are you going to do about it, right? We all...
Yeah. So let's put it on the front page.
So sue us, right? And you tried to get some traction, to get some coverage from mainstream media and not mainstream.
Nothing happened.
Nothing. Well, geez.
And it's very, very interesting that. So I made it a habit to go to like every lecture where a journalism professor or a journalist would give a lecture, a public lecture. So I'd go and I'd ask that question. Why is it that on two branches of government you just do wall-to-wall coverage? Trump is accused of obstruction of justice, and every paper, every TV station, every radio station talks about it, impeachment for obstruction of justice. But when judges obstruct justice right from the bench, nobody wants to know. Why is it that as far as the press is concerned, we only have two branches of government and not three? We have executive and the judicial and the legislative. Yeah, the press talks about them. But when it comes to judges, it's this awe, it's this silence, it's this like you can't speak about it. And actually, those professors of journalism and those journalists, they say, we cannot tell you why. It's kind of ingrained in the mind. I do not understand how we got so spooked that we no longer even understand that judges are just government. And if government is supposed to be under public control and public scrutiny, how is it that judges aren't? The decisions come down, and we're like, look what those Olympian gods said in their decision, and we're supposed to watch it in awe, and we're not even thinking about, how is it even possible for a 4-5 split decision? And in fact, when you understand that judges adjudicate their own argument and not the party's argument, 9 judges or the justices of the Supreme Court look at 9 different cases because they invent their own argument, and then they decide their own case, and then they vote, and then they somehow fuse those 9 cases into one, and they say, 4 to 5, we've decided the case. And I'm like, this is if you think about it, this doesn't make any sense. It just tells you right away that they do not evaluate parties' argument, that something else goes on. So to me, the question of why Lady Justice is, first of all, shown in the courts, and the second of all, has this blindfold is a very, very, very personal question. I spent a ton of money kind of trying to figure it out by now with all those court cases and appeals and the further court cases, and the whole thing's Kafkaesque. Literally.
It is Kafkaesque. Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. Well, we hope that this might be the beginning of a change, at least in people hearing about it. We hope that. We are certainly, I don't consider KSCO the mainstream media because we're literally a voice for everybody, and the mainstream media is only a voice for themselves and people who think like them. So hopefully, geez, that's great. Now, so Amy, kudos for coming up with a great personal question for not only Josh, but for Lev. And the reason I asked Amy to co-host with me today is at the end of our first and only conversation before today, yesterday, during which we set up your coming on to the Saturday special today, you disclosed to me that you are a, you didn't use the word refugee, but I mean, is that a correct word to use for you, except not from China, as as Amy is, but from the communist Russia, the USSR.
That is correct. I came from the USSR, and I was supposed to be a refugee. And there is a funny story behind this also, that they ran out of refugee visas. So the normal route would be to go from the USSR to Austria, to Italy, and sit and wait in Italy for the visa. And there was such when Gorbachev came to power and opened basically the gate, there was such a flood of people that they ran out of visa allocations, of refugee visa allocations. So they came up with something called parolee status. So I was being paroled into the United States. And very, very interestingly, I had a conversation, very innocently. I start looking for a job, and they say, and what is your status? What is your legal status? I say, I'm paroled. This lady, she almost fell out of her chair, and she said, don't tell anybody that you were paroled, because to her, I was paroled from prison, because that's really the only way she understood the word. So it's a very nice thing to get paroled into the United States out of the Soviet Union, I can tell you that. But yeah, it's true that, I am an ex-Soviet, so I understand communism pretty much inside out. I have it in my bones. I have a feeling that the Soviet communism was probably different from Chinese communism, but it was not a pleasant thing to live under, I can tell you that.
Anyhow, that's why I wanted the two of you to be on together. We've done Saturday specials before on the subject of some other country by birth and American by choice. And I think that's a wonderful group of people who should know each other. I really do. So
it would be really interesting to compare notes. I agree, because I never really talked to a Chinese person from China. I had a colleague.
Well, have at it, and don't mind that thousands of people are eavesdropping.
That's perfectly fine. I knew a lady from China who's no. She was not from China. She was from here. But it's a story. It's a kind of terrible story. I've asked her whether she has relatives in China, because her father was from Taiwan and came to the U.S. later. And she said, we do, because the way her father got into Taiwan was that when Americans were evacuating, or the Chinese were evacuating, he was a boy, like 10 years old, and his relatives took him by the hand and feet and swung him and threw him into the boat so that he wouldn't stay in China. Because they could no longer, the gangway was already gone, and the ship was disembarking, and just to save him from communism, they threw him on. So she knows that they have relatives, but who they are, where they are, she doesn't even know. But it's a story that really sent shivers down my spine when I heard it. It's just incredible.
Well, so Lev, we didn't get to talk all that much, but yesterday. But what the Saturday special, which is my program, and the only reason I own the radio station is I kept getting kicked out for one reason or another, and I figured if I owned the place, no one could kick me out, so I could do this, 2-hour show on Saturday and not worry about losing it, about somebody pulling the plug on me. So what we normally do, what we started doing this program, 30 years ago, and it's gotten more and more difficult as time has gone by, is to get competent and articulate spokespersons from both or all sides of a controversial issue, and get them on, and I be Mr. Neutral and just sort of referee a nice debate. And we did quite a bit of that in the first decade or so that I owned the station. Then it got harder and harder to get. One person would be willing to go on, not the other, or one would go on 1 hour and the other would go on the next hour and stuff like that. Now it's impossible to do that. So one of the things that went through my mind, on this project of yours that's so near and dear to you, and I agree with you, it should become near and dear to a lot more people, and it can't be unless it's out there unless people know about it. It went through my mind. I know a number of judges, not too many, 2 or 3 or something. One is a currently sitting judge, and the others are former judges. And it has occurred to me to ask them, because I've always wanted to get a judge on the Saturday special, because it's sort of a mystique. It's like getting a mortician, on the program where people can call in and ask questions of this mysterious, industry or whatever.
Oh, God.
But I thought, gee, wouldn't it be great to get Lev on someday with a sitting judge or even a retired judge? And on this particular topic, what do you think?
Well, I think that would be wonderful, but I think that I really doubt if the judges would agree to that.
I agree with you.
Yeah, I think
especially the sitting one, right, Amy?
Yeah, I don't think they will accept that kind of challenge because,
Yeah, they'll run into trouble, among their own.
that is correct.
Yeah,
And
not only for appearing with you, but for appearing at all, right?
Exactly,
Yeah.
because they want to be those
probably
senior.
retired judge.
Even the retired judge?
Judge,
Even or... Yeah.
Retired judge probably will, and then probably some attorneys.
Uh-huh.
I think they will. Yeah.
Well, you and I know Chick, and I've been trying to get Chick on for years, and Chick is not interested. She's retired,
Yeah, she retired, but she's still in the arbitrator.
Oh, okay. Maybe that's
So
why.
she's still in the bench, but in the private settings, so she didn't want it to.
Right. Okay, so much for that. What do you hope will happen now that you're starting to get the word out through little old KSCO, if no place else?
Well, my hope is to simply put judges on the radar of journalism, just like any other branch of government, because somehow I just feel that judges are not being treated as government. That if the basic, the foundation of democratic society is that the government is accountable to the people, and in fact, it is true largely for the other two branches, but somehow judges are treated as gods much more than they are treated as government or even as humans. The reason they do not want to appear before the public and start answering questions is because, they say familiarity breeds contempt. All of a sudden, people are going to discover that they're just people, that judges have their, so to speak, clay feet, that there are things, that there are literally things that they won't be able, if you start to rationally digging into how they do things, that there won't be any answers.
We should start, just for fun, we should start the Clay Feet Society.
And actually, to me, a judge is like a politician. Yeah. And then, did you know that time have a cartoon they talk about with a rope for sale? Each different level of the judge and different price. So that's how they get elected and appointed. And as I know, in the legal community, when they had to appoint somebody, and some commissioners, a lower level of the judge, and the judicial appointments, they always send a letter to the legal community, different lawyers, law firms, to get their opinion, whether they think about how they evaluated that person in the professional levels, ethicals, everything, and then what the case they being ruled, the case they being attorney argued, what kind of things. That's why, as I know. But then mostly it's like a politician.
Well, and they actually act as politicians because they know when to say right things. When they're being nominated, like very, very recently, Justice Kavanaugh, he just said judges are umpires. I remember very well how Chief Justice Roberts the now Chief Justice Roberts, how he was replying to that question, and he says that judges do not pitch or bet. They only call balls and strikes. And presumably people who do pitching and betting are just lawyers, and they're just counting, okay, this guy won. And that's the impression that they keep giving, that this is a fair system.
Because they give their immunities.
Right,
and
then...
Untouchable.
Right,
so
right. And then the moment they are seated on the bench, it's a whole different story. They pitch and they bet and they do whatever they want, and they act as lawyers. They are parties to the case. And the most foundational part of due process of the law, we presumably have that guarantee right in the Constitution, I think of the Fifth Amendment, is impartiality, is that a judge cannot be a party to the case argued before him. If the judge discovers that he is a party, he has to recuse himself. And usually this is interpreted as if it is, for example, a corporation in which judge has shares of stock, then he's got to recuse himself, because then he's kind of interested in this company doing well, et cetera, et cetera. But on a broader level, impartiality means not a party. Parties to the case are plaintiff and defendant, and the lawyers who represent them. They have legitimate interest in showing kind of the best argument for their side. A judge shouldn't be doing that. In fact, a judge should be doing quite the opposite. He should be actually letting those two parties beat each other with the argument, and then simply, just like a boxing referee, say, okay, he wins by points or by a knockout, but he does not himself beat up the guy who he wants to lose.
Which is what happened to you more than once.
Which is what happens to me.
Yeah.
Or he does not hold by the hands the guy who he wants to lose to let the other guy beat him up.
Yeah.
And that is so basic and so fundamental, and any kind of lawyer or anybody is going to say, well, the most fundamental part of due process is the judge cannot be a party to the case. That whole issue of recusal is... And
we think that's adhered to, but it not...
No, it isn't.
It really isn't.
No,
Okay, great. Yeah, we're engaged in an unusual but very interesting and intriguing to me discussion on the Saturday special today about judicial fraud. And I'm going to open the phone lines now. If anybody wants to call 479-1080 in area 831 or email mz@ksco.com, they are encouraged to do so starting now. And I can tell that we're going to be, I think Lev can stay, and I think Amy can stay into next hour. But definitely, if you're going to call, if you want to enter this conversation, now would be the best time to call. 479-1080, area 831, or email mz@ksco.com. Now, if nobody calls in and nobody sends an email, then that means either one of two things. It means Amy's interested, Lev is interested, and I'm interested, but nobody else gives a damn. It either means that, or it means that we are so riveting with our own discussion that no one has anything to add. So, with that...
how about none of the above?
None of the above. Okay. Well, I don't know. What else could there be? I'm just thankful to be here today because I got my second shot yesterday. And at least I'm still...
Congratulations.
Yeah, at least, yes, and at least I'm still here. I cannot tell you how touched I was by the probably hundreds of emails I got over the last couple weeks from very concerned KSCO listeners. They said, we love KSCO, we love you. Please, 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 please do not get your... We're sorry you got your first shot, but you can stop. You can stop and not get the second shot. Well, why shouldn't I get the second shot? Because, well, people are dying, and they don't know a year or two from now, the modification of your DNA will kick in. And you have no idea what you're letting into your body right now. So, But sorry, gang, I love you and I appreciate you. And there were so many of you who begged me. Like, who the hell am I? Well, someone that at least some of the listeners of KSCO appear to care about. And it's like I went against their judgment. And it's because I think if I catch COVID, even if it was nothing more than the flu, I don't even want to catch the flu. I'm getting old. I'm almost 70. I'm 69.5, almost.
MZ, I
What?
think they worry about the changing your DNA. And
Yes, they do. They do worry about that.
I know. Eventually, you become something else.
Oh, well, it might be something
That's
else
what
better.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Anyhow, well, we do have a couple of callers. So here, let's take our first caller, who is none other than Dave in Capitola, about the judges. Dave, welcome to KSCO with Lev, Amy, and MZ.
Morning, MZ. Morning, host there. Great show. Listening to the show, all of a sudden it really made sense when the guest there cited the statute that allows the judges to be whatever they want to be and turns them into the political side as compared to straight up justice. I think this message has to get out, and once you hear that message, all of a sudden you start to realize how it's no problem for the Supreme Court or any other court to just walk away from a case or rule on it however they want. And in the case that since it's political, these judges should have to go up for election, and they should not be unlimited terms. They need to be able to be thrown out of office. And I hope this word gets out. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for calling 479-1080, Dave in Capitola. Lev, are all judges appointed or elected for life? I don't think so, but I thought it was just justices of the Supreme Court.
Well, my experience is only with the federal judiciary, to be honest. So those are appointed, and I think they're appointed for life, and I think that once they retire, they get the full salary. My personal theory of how this whole thing should work is I think that judges should just be simply taught at school. That it should be a profession, and that they should simply be taught how to evaluate argument. The argument, it has several aspects. It has, first of all, it's got to be true, it's got to be relevant, and it's got to have weight. And if you do that, if it's strictly professionalized and it has certain rules where judges professionally cannot inject their own argument into their decision making, it's gonna, do the trick. Right now, there are so many discussions about what to do about Supreme Court. It should be packed. It should be. The judges should have term limits. And how does it change the nature of it? It's the nature of judging that is the problem. It's not really the composition. Of course, the composition is a problem in a sense that the Supreme Court of all courts essentially, I hate to say it, but essentially doesn't exist. There is no such thing as a Supreme Court. Supreme Court
was there ever? Excuse me. Was there ever? Did it ever exist?
There was a Supreme Court.
Yeah.
So in a sense that we have kind of ways to appeal, like the original court makes a decision, you're not happy with it. You go to appeals court. The appeals court doesn't decide to your satisfaction. You go to the Supreme Court, period. Right now, the capacity to hear cases does not exist. It existed up until about 1920s, but as the country grows, as the country, comes from 5 million countries that it was back in probably 1800 to 330 million country, I think it is today, and Supreme Court being, in fact, it's really one judge, because there are 9 judges, but they all act as one judge. Their capacity is to hear cases that only one judge can hear. So obviously they can only hear something like, 200 cases when 10,000 people apply. So what do? Who's deciding those? Nobody's deciding them. The clerks look at them and say, no, this is not interesting, this is not interesting. The judges simply have no, the Supreme Court judges simply have no capacity to even to read all this mass of petitions. Each one of them is 30, 40 pages. I wrote about it, and I calculated that if judges did nothing else than just simply read the petition for consideration, for accepting the case to the Supreme Court, they'd spend 14 minutes per petition if they did nothing else. If they never heard cases, if they never wrote their decisions. So obviously, we do not have a three-tier system.
Is there any country that you know of that has a better functioning system of the judiciary than we do?
Well, I do not.
I
I don't
think
know.
number one is that they say it rated as Denmark. Denmark is the most, they are very, everything relatively. Relatively is the most best judicial system, and also because of transparency.
Well, but also Denmark, if you think about it, it's a small country. The population is probably the population of the United States from 200 years ago, when the American Supreme Court was quite adequate. So the problem with the Supreme Court is not only that the procedure is wrong, that the procedure is arbitrary, but also that it has no capacity to hear cases.
Yeah.
And so they, of course, are trying to, to make lemonade out of lemons and say, well, it's because we are only taking those most important and most consequential cases. But that's not really the case. The case is that they don't have the capacity, and they discovered it in 1920s. The backlog became so enormous that they said, look, you know what, we cannot have this three-tier system.
All right. Well, we want to talk about where we can go next hour. But hold on, gang. For the benefit of Philip in Gilroy, he wants to know what statute was Lev citing. It's not a statute. It was case law, right?
It is a case law, and it is Pearson against Ray. It's a very, very interesting
Pearson,
case.
P-I-E-R or P-E-A-R. What is it?
Oh, gee, now you're asking a Russian person.
Okay,
Pearson against Ray.
R-A-Y.
R-A-Y. And so Pearson against Ray is a very, very interesting case in a way that it was a civil rights case that went completely against civil rights. I don't remember I read about it, I don't remember all the details, but basically it was like this. It was down south when, with the civil rights, and a bunch of white clerics, white clergymen were trying to help out, and they would join with the black clergymen, and they would go, on segregated buses or whatever it is. And so this bunch of clergymen, I think they were from New York, and one of them, this Ray guy, I think, was, or Pearson guy, I don't remember who, he was a close relative of New York, not mayor, but governor. The governor of New York, Rockefeller, I think, was the governor then. And he was his close relative. And so they go into a segregated area. It must have been a cafeteria or something. Half of them black, half of them white, and just to order breakfast. And the policeman comes in and he says, you know what, you're disturbing peace. This is basically for whites only.
Oh, my God. Hold that thought here, because we're coming to the end of the hour and the alligator's going to get us. You're listening to KSCO Santa.
And looking outside the KSCO studio, we've got 57 degrees. Today, sunny skies, mid-70s at most. Tonight, mostly clear, mid-40s expected, and that trend continuing through the weekend into the new week, where we will be cooling off by Monday, mid-60s at most. Time now for Saturday Special Hour 2 on AM 1080 KSCO Santa Cruz.
And the reason we have calls, but we don't have a full board as I had hoped. But you know what? The reason, I got a whole bunch of emails that says, riveting show, keep going, don't need any of us. but we do need Dave Michaels, and here he is.
Hey, MZ, how are you doing?
Fine,
Good,
fine.
good. I just want to take 1 minute to remind people that I'm out at the Dave Cave every Saturday from 10 to 2. And one of the products that we have here that we haven't mentioned, or I haven't mentioned in quite a while, is the collagen peptides. We finally got a healthy stock of this in. So if this is something that you've been wanting to try, now's the time to do it. I'm out there till
It's good for your skin.
Right. You know, collagen peptides, let me just read some of what it has in here. It has 5 main collagen types: hyaluronic acid, turmeric, MSM, and glucosamine. This is all in the collagen peptides. These are $60. Again, we have a sale. Is the sale effective today? Yes?
You're the boss.
Buy your Tangy Tangerine at regular price. Everything is 30% off. And
Even the Bloomin' Minerals?
even the Bloomin' Minerals, which is a crazy
that is
deal,
an incredible
right?
deal.
That is a great deal. And also, I want to remind people, MZ, that if you have some extra time and you're stuck at home, maybe you have a family member who has some extra time and could use some extra money, now would be a great time to start your own home-based business. And one of the best ways you could do it is to log on to kscohealth.com. You can sign up that way, or you can call me at 218-5726. That's 218-KSCO. Perfect game plan, MZ. If somebody has an extra bedroom or an extra room where they can set up a computer and a phone, take phone calls and place orders, you are exactly the type of person for this opportunity.
Yeah.
It's $50.
And as time goes on, we're signing up more and more big fish.
Right.
So we need people who have product knowledge and Dr. Wallach's message knowledge to take phone calls.
So if you're that person.
And take orders,
if you're that person who knows what Dr. Wallach would say in this case or that case, you listen to him all the time, and you have extra time on your hands, I'm telling you right now is the perfect time to join up. Log on to kscohealth.com or call 218-5726. That's 218-KSCO. Start your own home-based business. Guess how much it's going to cost, MZ, to start your own home-based business?
$30, or is it $50?
It's $50 and $30 every year. So $50, or it might be one of the, but it's certainly under $50. Start your own home-based business. Work from home. Work from home.
What could be better than that? And you can decide how much money you want to make.
Sure.
If you want to make enough basically to get your products for free, that's fine. If you want to make enough for an extra car payment or a house payment or a deposit for your kids or grandkids' education in the future, that's fine. Or if you want to replace your 9-to-5 job, that's fine. Or if you want to get enough to buy real estate and fatten your personal financial
or
statement.
do like I did and get your kids set up with good credit, a bank account, and some money for a college education before they're even out of high school. That's fantastic. You give your kids a leg up. I mean, the possibilities are endless, MZ, but what we're trying to say is that you can sign up right now, start your own home-based business for under $50, work from home. And what more do you want? The coronavirus, like I said in that commercial, has changed a lot. Some things are never going to go back to the way they were. People are shopping from home. People are selling from home. This is the time to start your own home-based business, MZ. This time is unlike any other time that we've seen.
For sure. And we can show them out. And the added bonus is you get to be connected with you.
Yes.
And with KSCO. And the price is right for the ads, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, again, 218-KSCO. That's super easy to remember. 218-KSCO for any questions about longevity, but also for signing up. And if you want to sign up or order online, go to kscohealth.com. When you become a distributor, you'll get your own website. So, somebody was telling me, well, I'm not good with the computers and this and that. You don't have to be. Tell people, go to my website. They'll order from there. Longevity will send you a check. That's it. That is it. If you don't have a computer, you're going to have to do business over the phone, and that's a little old school. That's going to take some while, but it can be done. You don't have to be good with the computer. You don't have to come up with any fancy names. They'll do all that stuff for you. All you have to do is send people to your website. They shop there. Longevity sends a check. That's it.
I love it.
Like it?
God, I should get into that.
218-KSCO, kscohealth.com.
Right. Great. Thank you, Dave. Dave Michaels. Let's start hour number 2 officially.
Oh, hello, darling. I hate to hang up on you, but I'm sorry, baby, but I have to go. It's time for that wonderful record show. I'd love to visit, but you'll have to call back. KSCO has the inside
welcome to hour number 2 of the Saturday Special on your favorite radio station and mine, KSCO. We're talking about willfully corrupt and malicious judges.
I'm sorry, baby, but I really gotta go to KSCO Radio. Bye.
Not only willfully, but proudly corrupt and malicious judges. Proudly, right, Lev?
Well, they say it right in the open. I mean, the district attorneys, that really surprised me, that district attorneys would put that. It's a whole long paragraph, and it just says, for no reason, even when accused of being corrupt and malicious, basically can anything be done.
And Amy is here, too, and she finds it amusing also.
Well, it was surreal. Look, it was a moment that was surreal. Probably the more surreal moment was when I realized that the New York Times and Washington Post and places like that are not interested in knowing this. They just say, see no evil, and that was probably even more surreal than seeing this in that the district attorneys of the United States openly support and openly defend corruption and malice. What can be crazier? What can be more surreal than that? It's pretty incredible. But this is the actual language. It's basically, to my mind, is that the Constitution says there is due process of the law. And Pearson against Ray says, no, there is no due process of the law. The judging is arbitrary. Whatever judges want, that's it. It doesn't matter what the facts are, what the parties say. It just leaves both the lawyering part of it and the decision-making part of it in the hands of the judge. And this is especially roiling because as a party, you pay the lawyer. I read all his briefs. I was very pleased with them. I knew that they were worth the money. And then it turns out that all this gets just thrown out into the garbage, and judge writes his own stuff. I didn't hire the judge to be my lawyer, and the government didn't either. Why should the judge be a lawyer for one of the parties? It's not how the system is advertised. This is what is so Kafkaesque about it. This is not how it's advertised. It's just, by showing us the images of Lady Justice, by telling us that judges are umpires, by having this whole elaborate procedure of this lawyer sends in his papers, then within a certain number of days, the other lawyer responds, and you naturally expect that these two sets of arguments just get evaluated against one another, not that the judge will just replace them with his own argument that's convenient for him to decide the case the way he wants to, not the way he has to. And this is, it really boggles the mind. And, the reason why I kind of kept digging further and further and further and further is that you can't really comprehend it. You really seek for some rational, that there's got to be an element of rationality in all of this. It just can't be that the judge decides something else than what the parties give him. And yet this is how it works. And it's just irrational. I keep mentioning. Yep.
Yeah. I just want to put the phone number out here. If you want to talk to Lev, who's very interested in bringing media awareness to the fact that judges can and do very arrogantly commit acts from the bench that are willfully malicious and corrupt by their own. They've given themselves that power. But what's the name of the case?
Well, the name of the case is Pearson against Ray.
Okay. And so that's what we're talking about, and nobody else talks about this.
Yeah, and it's surprising. And it's really surprising.
Well, KSCO is on the foreskin of science here and information, and so a lot of the media looks to us, looks to little old KSCO for innovative things to latch on to, and talk about. So yes, here we are now. 479-1080. That's an area. 831 or mz@ksco.com if you want to participate in today's program with Lev and Amy and MZ. And here's Jim in Seaside who wants to ask Lev about a lawyer? What?
Hello, everybody.
Hi, Jim in Seaside.
Hi. Yeah, I was wondering, Lev, did you use the same lawyer throughout this whole process that you went through?
Yes, except for it was the same lawyer, except for when I had to sue judges, because then he said, "No, I'm not doing this." And apparently, for the lawyer to actually go against a judge and to doubt how judging is done, that's such a huge no-no. I was telling him, I was like, look yourself, look what they're doing. And he told me, he told me, he said, "I see that you despise the judge. You've got to pretend that you respect him." And that's what he told me,
right.
So yeah, but other than that, it was the same lawyer going through all the appeals, going through the different court, going to the Supreme Court, or trying to go to the Supreme Court. Same guy.
The question that I have for you is, if your lawyer creates a series of errors or commits a series of errors, and the judge rules against you because of the errors that your lawyer engaged in, then would it not be a bias for him to rule in your favor, even if he's sympathetic, if those errors existed?
Well, that's a question I get all the time, by the way. Essentially, the question is this: what if one of the parties is represented by an incompetent lawyer? And my answer to this is that it may be unjust that an incompetent lawyer practices law. It's really a question of competence. So it may be unjust that the incompetent lawyer practices law, but it is very, very unjust that the incompetent lawyer wins cases because judge sees that he's incompetent and takes his seat, and then naturally decides for his own argument. One of the very insidious things about judge putting in his own argument is that it's just humanly impossible to not be convinced by your own argument. That's number one. Number two is that the absolutely essential for the process is the ability to rebut the other party's argument. Here, it was impossible to rebut the argument that the judges constructed for the government simply because it arrived right in the decision. But then that's it. It's over. At the end of the decision, it just says, "So ordered." And too bad.
Well, yeah, that's kind of typical, though. But if you appealed that decision, and you took it to a court of competent jurisdiction, and they ruled against you, and then I would look. I'm not saying that you're wrong. Because I know there are corrupt judges out there. I mean, everybody knows that. I mean, there've been judges that just hung people for spitting on a sidewalk, right? Okay, we all know that. But if you appeal it to a court of competent and they rule against you, then I would of course you've used up your appeal, which is bad. But I would have definitely consulted with more than one attorney. I would have had conversations with several attorneys, and because if the judge has a bias against your position and you do not give him an argument that is undisputable, he's going to do anything within his power to rule against you. So it's your attorney's responsibility to make sure that argument is undisputable. And when that argument is presented on appeal, that judge should, should ideally by the motto of our legal system should see that there was a problem with the lower court, the judgment of the lower court, and give you relief. But I would that's my opinion, and I just the way I look at it is if your lawyer made a mistake and the judge ruled in your favor, even though ignoring the mistake, then would that not be a bias in your favor? And that's my whole argument there. But anyway, great show. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thanks, Michael. Have a good day.
Okay, you take care, Jim.
Yeah. Bye.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. If I may reply very, very briefly, that makes perfect sense. And of course, we know how the system should work on paper, and it does not work in practice the way it works on paper. Because what the caller was saying, I believe his name was Jim, right?
Yeah.
So what Jim was saying was that the judge should have considered your lawyer's argument. But he didn't. And that is the problem. He didn't consider my lawyer's argument. He didn't consider the government's argument. The first case, the government's argument was so ridiculous. The government didn't argue anything. So the judge cooked up the argument for the government. It had the names of cases that he cited, the facts that he cited. They had nothing whatsoever to do with what the government argued. It was just he went and he redid the work of the government's lawyer. So the second judge quite simply said that my lawyer didn't say what he said. I just said, well, but look at page 20. Here is what he says, what the judge says he doesn't say. No use. My lawyer just said, look, don't you see that you go from one appeal to another appeal, and the judges just want to do it. They just don't want to decide it right. That is the problem. The problem is between how it should be, how judging should be done, and how judging is done.
How are you going to change it? The system is so entrenched.
Well, I think that this is where the press has the key role. There was a very, very interesting situation in New York. Now, I live in New York, and that was like, for history buffs, somewhere 150 years ago or so, in 1850s and 60s, New York was run by, I don't remember whose parties they belonged to, by a Tammany Ring. I think they were called the Tammany Ring. And they essentially set their own politicians, and it was essentially an extortion scheme where they would give people the job, they'd help the new immigrants, but in exchange they would soak businesses of money, and to help them do it so that the judges, wouldn't say a thing, they bribed two very, very prominent judges. They were just basically on their payroll. And, one of them, by the way, was there is a very famous Supreme Court justice, Benjamin Cardozo. And there is a Cardozo Law School in New York. And one of those judges was his father. So his father was one of the most corrupt judges in American history. And the way they got rid of them was through the press. They started talking about the kind of the public-spirited citizens, started talking about what's going on with the judiciary.
Okay.
So why is it that bad guys get off the hook? Why is it that a cop takes somebody, brings it to the judge, and the judge says you're free? And here is why. There was this Judge Barnard, I believe his name was, and the other one was Judge Cardozo. Now, Judge Barnard worked simply out of greed. He was when he died, his estate was in cash over $1 million in the dollars of 1860s. So he just took tremendous bribes from the Tammany Ring. And as to Judge Cardozo, he had high hopes that the head of Tammany Ring would become the president, and he would seat him on the Supreme Court. So his was a purely political ambition. But what happened was that the public-spirited citizens got the story to the press. The press kept writing about it. There were famous cartoons, but there was a guy by the name of, I believe, Thomas Nast, was a very famous cartoonist, and he did a bunch of cartoons on that, and they just wound up beating those guys and depriving them of their public position. I think one of them wound up in jail, and there is a role for the press. They just said that the press sheds this disinfecting light, sunlight of publicity that that is the best disinfectant. And for some reason, two branches are indeed subjected to that sunlight. But the judiciary, they put themselves into that position where they are gods and not government, where we can only look at them with awe but not with criticism. And it is this totally unhealthy attitude toward that third branch of the government that essentially makes it invisible to the press that is the problem. I think that, the moment the New York Times or Washington Post accepts my op-ed, and, people start writing comments on that and say, oh, yeah, this happened to me too, and all this stuff, and suddenly there is a discussion. People are going to start looking at it and say, yeah, this is crazy. Judges can be corrupt and malicious, can write their own argument for party's argument.
Lev, we have we have a number of emails. One from Scott, who says, did Lev ever get his book published, and if so, where is it available to purchase? Thanks.
Well, the book is available on Amazon. It is called The Pitfall of Truth, Holy War, Its Rationale and Folly. And it is a book about the role of religion in inspiring religious violence, like what we saw on 9/11. I wrote the first version before 9/11. And
you would have think such a topic would have been very interesting even before 9/11.
Right, but the problem is that it's, when you talk about religion, it's a double-edged sword. Because when it comes to, say, to Islamic terrorism, yeah, fine. We all know that it's an issue, or a bunch of people who are interested in that know that it's an issue. But I just kind of went across all kinds of ideologies. I just started kind of chronological. I looked at Judaism, Christianity, Islam, communism, and Nazism. Because I essentially see religion, that the problem with it is not so much that it's kind of religion per se, that it is about God and angels and afterlife and so on, but that there is perception that this is true. And so I just went at the kind of truth value on how do we know that this is true or not true? How can we even know what we're talking about? And this is what makes it so hard to read for people who are kind of who are in theory interested in it, but just don't want their part of it, or what they've inherited to be criticized. It's a fairly painful read. But
what did you do before you wrote that book?
Well, here is how I came to it, and again, it was because I left the Soviet Union, wound up in Italy, and waiting for the visa, and there were people who were officially kind of teaching English to the new immigrants, but in fact they were. It was a Christian group, and all those people were, coming out of the Soviet Union. They were Jewish, so it was a missionary group, and they were lovely people. And they started talking about religion, and and those were English language lessons, but it was all about religion. And to me, of course, Soviet Union was atheistic. To me, it was all news. And by then, I was a grown-up. I was like about 24 years old. And I'm listening to that, and I'm like, oh, really? Huh, that's odd. So, when you're a child, you do not approach it with a critical thinking. There is, you're being told that it is so it is so. And somehow, I got very, very interested. So I read the Bible. Then I read the Quran. I had plenty of time on my hands. I was sitting there waiting for that visa for about 9 months. So I read the Bible cover to cover. I read the Quran. And the thing just absorbed me. And then I started seeing that, looking at it historically, there was so much violence around it, where people kind of trying to convince each other that they were in the right, wound up essentially having no other argument than just trying to kill their opponent for being wrong, for being devilishly wrong. And I saw this as a kind of pattern going right into kind of my soil. I understood it from the Soviet part, where, what Bolsheviks did, they just decimated the country. They killed millions of people in the Gulag. Why? Because they were in the wrong. They weren't thinking it right. They were wrong. And I thought there's something about this notion of truth that really unites all those different streams of behavior and really results in violence. And that is how I wound up writing this, The Pitfall of Truth. And because
But here's another personal question for you. How did you make your living? I mean, it takes money to live and to migrate from one country to another.
No, that's an easy part. There were Jewish organizations that were helping, that actually paid. So we were all squeezed in Italy. We were all squeezed like sardines in a can, like several guys in one room. There would be. So it was. We lived not in Rome. It was Ladispoli, a resort town near the sea. It was the winter. Nobody was renting. So nobody was, the rooms were empty. It was the summertime that it was very hard to find something. But basically, the town lived off tourism in the summertime. And in the winter, they would just take, whoever would take the apartments. And to make things, cheap, it was like a 2-bedroom apartment. So 3 families would just move in, and we would just be all squeezed in there. We would share the rent, and it was enough. And then, when I came to the U.S.
You must have made some very close friends.
Yeah, it's interesting that, yes. The unfortunate thing about this whole experience is that I never managed to learn any language. There were so many Russians that you really didn't have to interact with the locals and to, other than the most basic stuff like how much does it cost or something like that. And this is my greatest regret, that I lived among the Italians and I didn't pick up any language. And that's kind of, to this day, I'm like, it was such a wonderful time in that respect. And I could have
Now,
used it,
do you live
problem.
near Brighton Beach with your 718 area code?
I do.
Wow. Boy, am I jealous. I love that area.
Well, the interesting thing is, I was listening to your weather forecast at the start, and the weather now, is exactly like yours. Today is this gorgeous day here. I am a little far. I'm a couple of miles off. And, I do hear that...
Are you near Sheepshed Bay?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Avenue X?
Within walking distance, within walking distance of all those places, yes.
Yeah, cool.
And it's look, it's exotic. It's just like people would say, oh, it's cool. Chinatown in New York is cool. But probably for the Chinese, it's like kind of what about it? Yeah, that's how we live. Yeah, we eat Chinese food and all. I had a colleague when I worked, and he said, oh, yesterday we went to Brighton Beach, and we drank kvass. And he said kvass is a Russian, drink, kind of like cola made out of bread.
Yeah.
And to him it was, he was like saying that, like he went, I don't know, to the moon and did something really, really, so you drink kvass, and so what about it? So to being a Russian, it's not particularly exotic living near the Brighton Beach, but I hear that it's a great tourist destination, and of course.
I never go to New York without going to Brighton.
Yeah.
Anyhow, So listen, we got other callers we want to get to before they get tired and hang up.
Sure.
Okay, so here's the next one. Gordy in Deer Creek about recall of judges.
Yes, that's what I want to know about. Recently, we had a judge recalled up in San Mateo County because of the decisions that he came to.
Please talk louder, Gordy. For some reason, I've got you cranked all the way up, and it's not loud enough.
Okay, is it better?
Much better, yeah.
Okay, we had recently a judge in San Mateo County recalled for bad decisions that he made. You're probably aware of that case there. There was a rape that took place. A Stanford student was the perp on this. And anyway, why can't we recall all the judges? Why can't we subject them to that when they make bad decisions and they're clearly not acting in the public interest? And if you think that that's possible, what are the mechanisms that we can employ to do that?
Great question, Gordy. Thank you.
It is a great question.
I'll hang up now. Thank you very much for being there.
Thanks.
It is a great question. And in theory, there is a procedure to do that. And you can file for, I don't remember the exact word now, for the judicial misconduct, I think. But the problem with judicial misconduct, like I do not know about this case where the judge was actually recalled and whether he was a federal judge or not, because I only know about the federal judges. But the problem with judicial misconduct is that it only works for situations that do not involve the actual decision. That is, you saw a judge smoking drugs, or injecting drugs. You saw the judge being inebriated. You heard of the judge getting some extramarital affair or something like that. So this is the only way, the only reason that they hear for removing judges. If they say, in my, I've tried that. So in my instance, I just said, the judge basically sees things that are not there. So why does it matter whether he was on drugs or whether he was sober? As far as I'm concerned, it's immaterial. The argument that on the basis of which he decided the case never existed. The government never produced it. So why is he seeing things that are not there? Why is he not seeing things that are there? Why should it be just because of drugs, alcohol, or some such like reason? And the answer, and so it can't be done simply on the basis of the judge decide the case based on his own argument. This is not part of the criteria. And so I've tried it and I just failed. The reply was because this is about because this is about a decision and not about the kind of conduct, social conduct. We're not going to consider it.
Okay.
So I don't know what happened with that.
We do have a couple of more callers here that we want to get to, and then we're going to change the subject here. I got a really intriguing question for Amy, sent by Casey Tiefertiller, who apologized for it being not on the subject. I think it's so cool that we'll change the subject before the program ends. So the next 5 minutes or so, we'll take Don in Corralitos and, Tony in Live Oak, followed by Don in Corralitos. Tony, you're on KSCO.
Yeah, hi, MC.
Hey.
The two words that I loved talking about was critical thinking. It sounds like you should have a radio show called Critical Thinking. You maybe put him on for an hour. He could probably postulate on any subject and bring.
Now that's an idea. He's extremely intelligent, and he does have a sense of humor.
And most of your guests are not capable of critical thinking. I mean, really, really tough critical thinking. I mean, it's not a slam because I'm one of those too. I'm only a critical thinker once in a while. But I want to tell Lev, enjoy your talk, and I think your English is great. I think we can thank the Soviet Union for your English, right? English is the second language in the Soviet Union.
Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate it very much. The thing with the language is, I did study Russian in the high school, and it was sorry, English in the high school,
yes.
and it was very, very insufficient when I came here. And so I'm afraid that, like a maniac, I deliberately started it. I got a book. I remember now, it was Mark Twain's Life on the Mississippi, and I was underlying every unknown word, and I was writing it down, and I was trying to memorize it. And I remember I was on the subway. I had this,
Could I get to my subject, please?
Oh.
I have another subject having to do with courts. Because of the similarity of names, there was a lawyer named Charnetsky, and I had a buddy, as a boy, I had a good friend named Charnetsky. So I read his 3-page monologue. It was proof that his last case in a 3-judge court was completely error-prone. In other words, the judges could not be wronger than they were. And so Charnetsky is the name, and as you know, in Polish or Russian, it refers to Black, Mr. Black, Charnetsky. And I recommend that as a way of showing that his point was that every single federal court with 3 judges had 2 people that were for sale, or like the mafia used to say, you only have to deal with me one time, but you may never have to do something for me, but when we call on you, you'll have to do it. That's the case with most appeals courts, according to this guy, and he wrote that about 15, 20 years ago. So I want to bring that into the discussion, that it's possible that all of our courts are corrupt, and maybe for the reason that you brought forward. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Tony. Take next, that would be Don in Corralitos. Don, you want to talk about replacing judges?
Yeah, well, your speaker, one of the callers suggested that we should be able to do a kind of a mass replacement of all these judges. And your guest pointed out that he would love to have, and has tried actually, to replace judges based upon decisions, but the only way you can place a judge is based upon conduct. There's a reason for that, right? I mean, if you want to replace a judge and you're doing it on decisions, that's political. There's no way to separate that out. You have to base it upon something like conduct, which is real and doesn't pertain to politics. The only other way to do that, you want to replace all the judges, you can do what a lot of groups do, and you just call them in. You replace them all with whoever you want. Chavez did that in '92. I think the Bolsheviks probably did it in their revolution too. That's the only other way you can replace all the judges. That's not democracy.
Oh, I grant you that. What if by democracy we consider the control of the public over the government, then first and foremost we've got to admit that judges are government and they should be subject to restraints and controls. And in fact, the Constitution says that there's got to be due process of the law, something that they call due process of the law.
So what are you going to say, that if a judge their decision is bad and is overruled a certain number of times, and you're going to recall that judge? You could create that and put it into the law. You can legislate that. The public can put it into petition. That could become part of the law. Right now it's not, but if you want to say, okay, you get 10 decisions overruled, then you can be recalled, that's an interesting idea, worth political debate. But the idea right now of saying, hey, these are all bad judges, we need to remove them, that's not fair game.
Don in Corralitos sounds like a very smart man.
Well,
not just like all you guys. Most of the people on your show that I listen to sound very, very smart. And you yourself, Michael, sound very, very intelligent.
Oh, well, there must
we
be
all have
some
different
mistake
points of
about
view.
that. The only thing that I say is that KSCO is for intelligent people only, and that stupid people are ordered to switch to another station immediately. Yeah, we have a sign that says no stupid people beyond this point. So anyhow, thank you for calling Don and Corralitos.
All right, thanks for taking my call.
Okay, Amy, you're going to come alive again, right? You're still there?
Yes,
It would have been impossible to fall asleep because Lev talks fast and his topic is interesting. So, but
very interesting. I don't think I'm falling asleep. I was thinking about all the things he talked about, and I think for most immigrants from the country, especially from a communism system, and we always so interested And the most appreciated is one thing is this country, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yeah. But for 40 years here, I was thinking about most of the time I was fighting for that. Also, gradually, I realized the system is just like, those old plumbing system. You lots of garbage in it, and they colluded it. So it's not easy to clean up. So this election is showed to me. And lots of things, especially a freedom of speech, we guarantee by the Constitution.
It's down the toilet, right, Amy? There's no such thing as freedom of speech.
Yeah,
really.
I mean, so that's what I'm talking about, freedom of speech, and then we rely on justice system to make justice for all for this election, but they don't even want to listen to hear any evidence. So what can you do about it? So I just feel more and more discouraged and disappointed.
Okay, here is a question for Amy from Casey Tiefertiller. Z, I have a question for Amy, but it may be too complex or not close enough to the topic. I am baffled by something. We rave about how Western drug companies developed the vaccine so quickly. However, China developed the vaccine faster than did the Western companies. Now China is distributing it all around the world and making friends. How could this happen, and what is going on? Could China have been developing this vaccine long before the West even knew the disease existed? Great questions. What do you think, Amy?
Yeah, I think, I heard about that. I read about that, and the people sending me some information from China. So I understand that it did develop before this happened. So you know what I mean?
They're way ahead of us.
Yeah, basically it's their warfare, unconventional warfare, to create this virus. And then that time they already have vaccine. But right now in China, interesting enough, just recently I know something. So you can, from that thing, the story, you can tell what about it, right? So they import the high price, they pay high, very high, 10 times the price. Like here we get vaccine, $20 to $40, 2 shots. Right, so they about 10 times for 1 shot or 2 shots, and the import from U.S. And supply to who? Rich people. They pay 8,000 to 10,000 yuan per shot, and of course free for the CCP leaders or those important people. And for instance, those people go to Alaska to have a meeting with us, right? So those people. So what do you think? So basically now they create something, they send it to some African countries and also further experiment there, because life is cheaper than China probably, that's what they think. And then they give it to a country like the Philippines, and so give those people a word in the airline to get shot. But they have a lot of people die. So basically in China, and Chinese people, they don't trust their vaccine. They want the import from the United States. They don't even want the one from
even vitamins, you tell me, right? People send you money from China to go get American-made vitamins, right? Because they don't trust their own.
They don't trust the food, everything else, because of poison, whatever, So especially vaccine. So they give it to most of people like my age, the classmates, friends, and they didn't get a shot yet because they don't have a chance yet. And they had to give it to Africa, and then they had to buy something expensive for rich people. That was Pfizer, Moderna from America, 8,000 to 10,000 yuan per shot. So that's my answer for that lady.
How much is 8,000 to 10,000 yuan per shot? How much is
about,
that?
Right now, it was about 1.27. $1.07.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, good. So, all right. Well, we covered that for Casey. I think it was a great, we've been talking a lot about vaccines lately. Amy, you got your vaccine, and I got my vaccine, and what about Liv?
Well, my first dose is going to be on Tuesday. So, well, we'll just see. It's Pfizer. So we'll just see how it goes. I hear all kinds of stories, how a friend of mine had a problem with her hand.
Yeah.
And she said she was in a good deal of pain after the first dose. And she said, well, after the second dose, she was, she had some symptoms but didn't skip work.
Right.
Well, we'll just see how it goes. I just kind of feel that you can't just constantly live in fear and just go around and hate people around the block. I see a person walking, and I'm like, why is he walking when I am walking? And I hate that feeling. I really do. I really do. So I just really want to get us back, to the normal situation. So if it contributes, if I just contribute by taking a shot, what the heck.
How has your life been denormalized?
Well, it wasn't particularly denormalized because I'm in front of my computer and I'm just doing sending out emails, trying to write stuff, trying to get people to post my stuff, to publish my stuff. So it's like everything else. It's like you're just at home in front of the computer. That's all. It's just that I used to go into the city. New York is. I do not need to advertise it here. I'm sure that everybody knows it's a cultural capital. There is Metropolitan Museum of Art, and this and that. And
did you go on the Q subway?
Yes, yes. It's just amazing how well you know the city. It's just unbelievable. Yeah, it really is. I'm truly impressed at that subway line. So that is, of course, it's kind of survival mode like everybody else. The joy of life, the joy is really taken out of life. The luxuries are no longer there. It's just survival. Well, which is very important, by the way, But then hopefully we'll just get back to human life, to living, from simply biologically surviving. So I personally, have a good deal of hope for the vaccine, and that it's an opening into the life, because the way we kind of lived from one shutdown to another, all of a sudden the cases are rising, and the governor says you've got to again, stay indoors and not meet anybody, and it's crazy. It's crazy. So hopefully, within a reasonable, 3-4 months, we'll be back to normalcy.
What does Amy have to say?
So I have one question for Love, and Love, right? And, what do you think about the jury system in our country? I think you must remember 1994 O.J. Simpson trial. So what do you think about that?
So 1994, I didn't catch.
O.J. Simpson, yeah.
O.J. Simpson.
Look, I remember the people at work talking about it. I mean, people didn't really talk about anything else. And the general, the reaction was that justice was not served. And I do not know. It's it's trial by jury. It's a total different. People get convinced by all kinds of things. It's a different animal. But there was a feeling all around here that justice was not served. That those people, just died.
It's a big disaster, I think, for our jury system. And so we are in California, so basically we're watching the trial every day, so we know this most terrorized the trial. And also to war, because not many countries is a jury trial. So most of the British system are court trials. So people were questioning me for they live in other country, Europe. They say that if this case was in court trial end up not jury trial, you think will be different result? Probably is, But for people before, I don't. I appreciate it. I say, wow, what a difference! We have a jury trial because the 2 of jurors, you were becoming it's like such a responsible and a group, and so they are so totally impartial and totally just responsible and become the responsible citizen and to do the duty and have a common sense. And probably much better than or the professional, like a judge to in the other country to make a decision, right? But this trial really tell me that is gone,
Well,
that was
impartiality is very
27 years ago. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's right.
We don't have a whole lot of time. I want to see if I can get to the last caller. We might not be able to, but real quick, Lev, contact information. You have a website or an email address or something that you want to put out to our audience?
I do have a website. It's called Coalition Against Judicial Fraud, CAJFR.org, and it has contact information and basically, my writing and describes my situation, my attempts to bring the light to this to this whole situation of corrupt judiciary.
I think we'll try Craig and Campbell real quick. Craig, you want to talk about my shot?
Well, Lev means lion in Russian. I want to throw that out.
L-I-O-N, L-I-O-N, not L-Y-I-N-G, right?
Yeah, L-I-L. Yeah. Good name. But hey, you guys getting the shots. So when this is a never-ending thing for the politicians. Now they're going to roll out the booster shots on you every 6 months. I'm reading. You guys don't know what's in the ingredients. I'm reading. There's some real bad stuff in the ingredients. It's not like when you go to the store, you could read the ingredients. They hide the ingredients. Well, you got to wonder.
Because it's an emergency. Yeah.
No, MZ, they could put the ingredients there. They do it on purpose. I mean, it's very easy telling you the ingredients and being honest like that. But you going to get the booster shots?
I don't think so. I mean, I don't know. Too soon to even think about that. But Craig, thank you for calling, and happy you're still listening. And I look forward to having another meal with you on your side of the hill. So.
Okay, well, just tell me when you come on up here.
Great, thank you. And I really want to thank our guest Lev today, and Amy, who you're hearing more and more on KSCO. And
can I say something to our guest?
Real quick, about 20 seconds.
Russian, spasiba and до свидания.
Your Russian is absolutely terrific, and thank you so very much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
That's great, gang. So I guess that's about it. We'll see you next week.
That's all, folks.